When you're planning an event, there's a lot of factors that get involved. So the last thing you want to be worried about is the food and the caterer that you're using for that event.
Here's the basic questions that you really need to ask yourself. One, the function, the type of function. Two would be how many guests you're going to have at this function, whether it's adults or children.
Where's your event being held? Who are your guests?
What you would like to serve, and four would be your budget.
Or is it something that the client is going to be able to come in and pick up on their own? Those are all things that we'll identify in the main first phone call, just to kind of know where we need to be with building the proposal.
And this will help guide our customer.
The customer should meet the caterer because it's really important to build that relationship. You want to know, in some cases, you're going to be working with a caterer for an extensive amount of time. I
think once you have a relationship built, I think then that the customer will build in trust.
This way you'll have the opportunity to make the right decisions for the event that you're planning to throw.
The customer or the caterer should be asking specific questions to the client. First of all, they need to have insurance. They need to have a certain amount of liability, the general liability, and normally, in most caterers should have a $2 million, minimum $1 million general liability policy. Most caterers will have $2 million. We have actually a $3 million general liability policy.
At Uncle Bub's, once we've established, the client relationship, we like to ask our clients to come in, try our food. We want to make sure that they're confident in all their menu selections, as well as confident in our services that we have to offer.
Everyone has different taste preferences.
It's really important to know your audience. You want to know if there's any food restrictions. Do you have heavy eaters so that we can allocate the proper amount of portions? You're also going to want to know if there's going to be a mix of kids and adult ratio. All of those things are going to play factors in what kind of food selections, as well as how much we're going to want you to have on location for the event.
Most guests here at Uncle Bub's think that's all we serve is barbecue. Because we do so many different catering events, including weddings, we offer such a different variety of food.
Think about special request items before it's too late.
When you're preparing for your event, we need to think, is there going to be kids on location? Are there any dietary needs? Are there any specialty menu items that we need to accommodate when we're building out the package?
Are your guests vegetarian? Are they vegan?
Religious-based food restrictions.
Or other food allergies?
All of those are things that Uncle Bub's is capable of doing based on different menu options. When you're searching for a caterer, it's important to be cautious of the pricing. A lot of times there can be caterers that can come in at a lower rate, but it's important to know that sometimes that could also be because the portions are going to be extremely low compared to what your guest count is going to be. Also, it could be prefabricated foods, processed foods.
If the price seems to be too good to be true, more than likely it is.
When determining how much food you're going to need for your event, it's important to look at all the factors that are going to play into how much food your guests are going to be eating.
Is the client going to be serving hors d'oeuvres?
Is it going to be a longer period of an event?
If the reception is going to be 2 hours, you're really going to need to go heavier on hors d'oeuvres and then go lighter on your entree.
Or you're going to want to send people home with leftovers as well.
As all of these things will impact the amount of food you'll need for the meal.
When you're planning your event, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You want to make sure you have all the pieces put together, which is going to be things like dessert, beverages. Are you going to have appetizers? All those things are going to play factors into your event and need to be considered when you're actually planning.
You want to consider what proteins go best, or what side dishes go best with what proteins. So if I'm doing a Hawaiian chicken, I would always suggest a Polynesian rice.
At Uncle Bub's, we cook from scratch, and all the small dishes are going to be just as good as the big dishes.
Take into consideration the location of your event, if it's indoors or if it's outdoors.
If indoors, Do you have the access to the things you'll need to properly hold and store your food?
If it's outdoors, do you have the proper temperature? Is it going to be windy that day? Is it going to rain that day?
The location is really important too in terms of sanitation purposes. Are we going to have running water? Are we going to need to provide water on location? Is there going to be ice on location? Things like that are going to play an important role in how we're going to allocate everything out for the event.
Chances are we may have already catered at the location of where you're holding your event, which give us a built-in advantage for what's going to be needed to carry that event out properly.
When a customer calls Uncle Bub's, it's important for us to figure out how the handling of the food is going to suit them the best. In terms of like, should this be delivered? A lot of times if it's going to be at an event where their guests are going to be arriving in advance of the serving time, we recommend you having us handle all of that so that you don't have to leave your event to go pick up food. In the event that you're going to be picking it up to go to a location, you know, sometimes that can save the additional money and then they can come pick up everything. We will make sure we put everything into the vehicles for them upon pickup at the restaurant and ensure that all the food is prepped and ready to go for when they get to the event. Servers on location are going to ensure that the food is being managed, replenishing is taking place, as well as, you know, servers are going to walk around and ensure that your guests enjoyed their meal. If they wanted anything additional, that they can have that as an opportunity to go get that for them as well.
You'll want chafing dishes with good sterno that will last for at least 2 hours. You want to have the proper pans, water baths to keep that food hot without burning the food. You want to make sure you have the proper insulated containers to keep your cold food cold.
If delivery is the right option for you, Uncle Bub's is going to have everything in Cambros, which is going to ensure that the food is maintained at the proper heat levels, as well as we have Cambros to keep all of our cold foods cold.
You're investing a lot of money to have your food catered. The last thing you want is to have your food spoil because it was improperly handled. I've been in the catering business for over 35 years, and we have every different type of food variety that you can imagine. And we do that so we can cater to every guest possible.
My husband and I got married on October 5th, 2013. I work for the City of Oak Brook Terrace. I do special events, and every year we have a 4th of July celebration, and we feed about 2,000 people for free. The venue had a series of recommended caterers. Uncle Bub's stood out right away. One of my neighbors had told me, there's this great new place in Westmont, you gotta go try it. So we went with them, came here, and the owner was walking around, Mark, and he stopped and introduced himself. We had our first meeting with Mark and Marie. She was very helpful. The lines went down drastically after Uncle Bub started catering because they knew what they were doing. To this day, I still get compliments on the food and how wonderful it was. You know, you go to weddings and you look forward to the food because you figure you're giving a gift. Everybody spends a lot of money on weddings, but half the weddings that I've ever been to, the food has been cold, it's been bad, or there's just not enough and you end up leaving, you know, at the end of the night hungry. So our guests, we wanted, it was very important for us to basically make sure that they were well fed, that the food was enjoyable, and everybody loved it.